I've been having this recurring dream. I'm at the beach and in front of a book, opened in a blank page. And there is an invisible force that's pushing me to write something urgently. But I don't know what to write about. And I feel that if I write something wrong, something catastrophic is gonna happen. You see, I believe life is like a book. And when we are born, we audition for a story we didn't apply for. It's inherited. We become characters in someone else's book without asking for it. And before we realize, we are left with countless conflicts, dilemmas, and problems in front of a white page and no instructions whatsoever on how to become now the protagonists of our own story. Today, we are constantly watching online content with advice that doesn't apply to our specific situation or context, trying so hard, sometimes for years, to follow a pretty much curated and packaged temporary solution and then reach the false and dangerous conclusion that maybe I am the problem. Maybe I'm not meant to succeed. Maybe this is not for me.
We humans are creatures of narrative. We are not made of genes, but as stories. We need to tell the stories in order to make sense out of the world, but also to make meaning out of ourselves. We just need meaning, not just events. And we use the words story and narrative as they mean the same. But there is a very important difference, especially when it comes to identity and healing. A story, on one hand, is what happens. That means the facts, the events, and the actions. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. For example, I lost my job. My partner and I broke up. A narrative, on the other hand, is the meaning that we give to the story. Is that inner narrator that connects the dots and says, and that is what that event means about me, or about my partner, or about the world. With the examples I gave before, could be I lost my job and that happens because I am not good enough, or my partner and I broke up because I am not lovable and everyone ends up abandoning me. Narratives are subjective, emotional, and deeply personal. They are shaped by our past experiences and also by what others told us about us and about our society and culture, etc. Narratives are especially molded by our fears, wounds, and limiting beliefs. And the creepiest part is that once we have created a narrative around a story or event, we start acting in ways that prove it true, even if it hurts. We might push people away, quit before we can fail, relapse when things are going great, or even avoid help or success because it doesn't fit the narrative we believe in, consciously or unconsciously. But what if we start questioning our narratives and creating new ones? Ones where we are not the victim nor the villain, not even the hero, just a new narrator, someone who can give us a new perspective. Okay, but wait, I don't get it. Why do we do that? I mean, why would we self-sabotage in the first place? I'm glad you asked. Our brains are naturally wired for negativity, prioritizing our focus on threats and dangers over positive experiences and stimuli just to ensure our survival. This evolved mechanism means that we tend to recall insults, failures, and criticism more often, dwelling on stronger negative emotions and making them more memorable and lasting on our nervous system. It's our mind basically saying, okay, remember, we want less of this. In modern life, this can go from ruminating more over a difficult social interaction to be more prone to be cautious when confronting risk, or even limit our exploration because we don't see a clear benefit when making a decision. But the good news is that this can be changed, and there is a very specific group of people that seems to be immune to this negativity biased phenomenon. There is a study done in the early 2000s by British psychologist Dr. Richard Wiseman. He wanted to study people and see if luck is just this magical force or a very specific way to look at the world. He spent 10 years studying more than 400 people who self-identified as rather exceptionally lucky or chronically unlucky to see if their behavior was in fact influencing their fortune. The most famous part of his research was the newspaper test. Wiseman gave the two groups a very specific task: count all the photographs inside. But there was a catch. In page 2, he placed a massive half-page headline that said, "Stop counting, there are 43 photographs." Further in, he also placed a second message, this time even bigger, with a reward of $250 just for spotting it. And of course, he wasn't testing their counting abilities. He was testing their peripheral awareness, their ability to spot an unexpected opportunity while focused on a specific task. The lucky participants spotted the stop counting message in seconds, while the unlucky participants were so fixated counting that they completely missed it. This study revealed that luck is in fact more a mindset of being open to the world and to unexpected opportunities rather than being blinded by a narrow focus. Wiseman also concluded that lucky people have 4 characteristics in common, and one of them is the mysterious secret that will define if we are lucky or not. And I will reveal it to you in a moment. Okay, Eva, I get it. I see your point. So my internal narrative is these stories, and I am wired for negativity, which means that I anticipate dangers when they often are not even here. And also my past experiences made me prone to have this victim mentality loop where I indulge myself in drama, chaos, and worrying, basically constructing the walls of my own mental prison. But what can I do now? I mean, how do I get out of here if I don't have any other experiences? Well. This is the part your psychologist doesn't want you to listen to.
Let me tell you the story of the happiest man I've ever met. This was a very peculiar encounter. I met this guy last year in a philosophy workshop called The Challenge to Be Yourself, and his brief participation deserved an ovation. He didn't look rich, mysterious, with high status, or good looking at all. In fact, he was wearing the uniform of his air conditioning company job. But the story he shared with the rest of the class was mind-blowing. He told us that out of despair and unhappiness, one day he decided to act as the happiest version of himself. He had no money, no job, no partner, no friends. He came to Spain looking for opportunities, but the adaptation process was soul-killing. He felt miserable and lonely, but he made a choice that day. I'm gonna be the happiest man I can be for the next 24 hours. He visualized it, felt it, and he was ready to try the next day. And when the day was over, he was shocked by how that experience impacted his day. So he decided to try another 24 hours. This time he was shocked. What kind of white magic is this? He asked himself, astonished by the positive impact on his mindset. He revealed that what started as an experiment ended up being a philosophy of life. And he started this ritual where every single morning he would look at himself in the mirror and say,
just another 24 hours. He told us that he started collecting stories, practicing gratitude and being more attuned to his environment, helping people who needed it, making new friends and being more collaborative in his neighborhood. He also would persist on how much his new perspective and attitude in life was a direct consequence of his choice, and he would insist about this fact over and over again throughout his story. And then he simply stood up and excused himself as he had to leave, and the rest of us stayed silent for a moment after he left. You could not only see his genuine joy as he was telling his story, but you could also feel it. Of course, we gave him a huge ovation before he left, and what a beautiful lesson he gave us. And as I'm telling you this story, I feel compelled to tell you something I already said before. Today, we are constantly consuming content that give advice that doesn't really apply to our context or a specific situation, trying so hard, sometimes even for years, to follow a pretty much curated and packaged temporary solution just to, out of frustration, reach to the dangerous conclusion that maybe this is not working because I am the problem. So just in case that you're wondering, no, I would never suggest to a person who is fighting against cancer or raising kids as a single parent that the solution to their problem is to become their best version. So this message is only for you if you are feeling lost in your life right now, lonely, or like you don't belong. You feel maybe behind in life. And no, I wouldn't advise you to become your best version or to fake it till you make it either. But I would definitely advise you this, to tune in, to listen to and to follow your intuition. And from that place, make the necessary changes you need to make to live your life according to your values and your needs and not others. That is the advice I would have loved someone to give me when I didn't want to live anymore, when I was lost and not knowing who to ask for help in the midst of my addiction. That is also the mysterious secret of lucky people. But what the study doesn't tell you is how did the so-called unlucky people get to see themselves as such. And arguably, we could conclude that an environment that is rigid and punitive could train a kid from a very young age to scan for threats and to be more prone to negativity, of course. And then the opposite is also true. A kid who is more encouraged to explore the world is going to be more open to opportunities. Later in life, we also can meet people who are going to see us as a threat every time we tap into our intuition. And that is when we start to isolate ourselves. Now that we are adult, we need to get some consciousness of this phenomenon so we can disengage from the toxic narrative of other people trying to accommodate their reality. Those are the narratives that end up being especially self-destructive for us neurodivergent people. We are conflict and rejection detectors. We read subtext, we can feel the room, we end up absorbing the toxicity of environments quietly while the rest are just pretending that everything is okay. That is what leads us to depression and addiction most of the time. We neurodivergent people are highly sensitive and we start noticing it and questioning it and talking about it. And that is when we become the misfits and the inconvenience and the socially awkward. Having to swallow this unspoken rule that says that we are meant to take any criticism or judgment without reacting, as far as it's framed as feedback or advice. Just as we did when we were kids, trading our authenticity and a very enriched environment attunement for the sake of compliance and a very needed connection. This video could be summarized in just one question, but I needed to bring you here so you can deeply understand what I'm about to share with you. What if, 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 what if there was nothing wrong with you? What if you're not in the wrong place? or in the wrong time? What if you're just another beautifully, perfectly imperfect human, but trapped in the wrong narrative? Then your goal is not to fix yourself anymore, but to revisit your stories, rediscover yourself, and change your narrative so you can choose wisely where you want to belong. Most of us are outliers, and as you might have already experienced, society is not very friendly to us. We are the rebels. Most environments are not ready for people who question the status quo. We do that all the time. Most people are not reflective, opinionated thinkers. We are. And most people watch movies, they read books. We are liars. We dissect them. We get obsessed with things. We get addicted to our passions, and we go to extremes with habits. And the whole problem is that we have been denying this nature of ours. We have been pretending that we don't live intensely, that we don't feel deeply, and that we don't fall in love wholeheartedly. That is why many times we have been feeling lonely, trying to fit in the wrong places with the wrong people. Now, what if that denial of your inquisitive nature was the thing sabotaging you? The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are so certain of themselves, but wiser people so full of doubt, would say philosopher Bertrand Russell.
And what if the life you imagine starts the moment you decide to trust that voice in you that knows exactly what's best for you, even if it's scary? That voice you've already tapped into every time you felt safe, accepted, or joyful. But for that, you must tap into the unknown. And yes, there is a high price for that.
Sometimes you have to let go of people and places that you are very attached to, as hard as it sounds. Trust is the voluntary engagement with the unknown without paralyzing fear of the consequences. And ironically, is the only ingredient we need to live a life in accordance with who we are. Because life is a journey one undertakes fully only when we trust that we will handle the conflicts and struggles that will come our way. And with time, we will laugh out loud at the crazy mistakes we made, with a mischievous smile on our face, while getting ready for the next fight.
Taking ownership of your story means breaking free from the narrative you're trapped in and starting unapologetically creating your own, so you can take the actions that will lead you where you were meant to go. Now, the clock is ticking. Are you ready?